us.
That's too funny.
What an opener for a unit.
Really?
And then she went on from there to talk about a whole bunch. Then meanwhile, her own husband is there in the thing. She hadn't gotten serious with your man, you know. But and his widow is there too, you know. So they're all like friends, and she gets going on it. Then when her husband stood up, her husband was a very good friend of his too, and he started in the same way. He said, now here's a guy who's a doctor who's in the business of fixing people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He said he never fixed anything in his life. He said if something broke, he'd find a way to work around it, you know, no matter what it was. He said the best example he could think of. He said one time he and his brother had this big boat. I can imagine what it was like, you know, living down in Darien. But anyway, this big boat, and they were all out for some shindig or other. There was 6 couples on this boat, and the engine quit. They were in a river somewhere.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so they said, what are we going to do? Are we going to get towed? Poor old Bob, Lord of mercy on him, said, no, we're going to keep going. He puts up the sail, and he figured a way to get the darn thing to move, and it did. It went all the way up to wherever they were going, and they celebrated, and then he expected them all to get back on. The wives wouldn't go. They took a taxi home, and the guys sailed back down the river again, and eventually got home. And there was one example after another like this, and so when we were leaving the cemetery, I was behind this guy and I didn't see his face. It turned out he was the guy who was telling the story about Bob never fixing anything. And he tried to close the door of my car, which was partially ajar because I sat, and I saw him do it. I figured I'll fix his wagon. I said, it doesn't close properly. I'm related to Bob. You made that line for me.
Right. That's funny. Well, I was telling